on 514 Online Mix, and today we have a very special guest, Jeremy White, an award-winning broadcaster. Thank you so much for being here, Jeremy White. How are you today?
I'm good. You really sold me well, but now I'm just going to disappoint from here on in. So.
Oh no, I'm sure you won't disappoint. Thank you so much for being here once again. I wanted to ask you, okay, you started your radio journey in when you were 15 years old, right? At the K103
Yeah.
FM.
Yeah, so when I was still in high school, I was really into music, like coming up through. It's weird because all the kids that I hung out with, in high school, everybody is into like house music and hip hop and like, Swedish House Mafia, bro. We're gonna steal our parents' liquor from their liquor cabinet and jam the Swedish House Mafia, bro. And I wasn't into any of that stuff. I was really into, like the bands that I heard growing up, like Van Halen, Def Leppard, Motley Crue. Getting into stuff like Kiss and like rock bands, like Bon Jovi. So I was kind of like the outcast in that sense, and I started playing guitar when I was in like grade 6, and I was in this like really stupid snowblading accident. I'd never been skiing in my life. One of my dad's managers, one of our businesses, invited me with his family to go skiing. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'm down. Like, this is gonna be cool. So we go. As soon as I've never been skiing in my life. Okay. First time we go, we go snowblading. Like and snowblades are like the shorter skis with like no poles. So it's like that's the worst thing you could ever do if
for the
you've
first
never
time
been skiing in your life, right? So yeah, so I'm there, and as soon as we get onto the ski hill, like just like get off the ski lift, bam, fall right away.
Oh my gosh.
So then I start going down the hill, and I immediately wiped out. I wiped out right away, and fractured my ankle. Was in like the hospital for like 8 hours in the emergency room. So point didn't learn much. So the school was upstairs, and I couldn't go upstairs because I had a freaking cast on.
Oh my gosh.
I could barely walk on these crutches, so I just gave up. So when I got to high school, like my best friend at the time, he played drums, and like I wanted to play guitar, so I picked it back up and started jamming and stuff. And my music kind of, I guess, journey kicked off there. So then I started building these Eddie Van Halen tribute guitars. Eddie Van Halen plays like, he has an iconic red guitar with like black and white stripes on it. It's called the Frankenstein. Actually, hold on. I have a picture.
Awesome. Yeah.
I was just looking at an Eddie Van Halen magazine last night, and it came with a free poster of a Frankenstein guitar.
Oh my god, that's beautiful.
Yeah, so that's what the Frankenstein looks like. So I built a replica of this. It's in my studio downstairs, but
what?
So I built one of those, and I built a replica of his other guitar. So there was this guy that worked at the radio station at K1037.
Mm-hmm.
His name was Lance DeLille, and I knew that he was a Van Halen fan because my dad was friends with him, and I knew him from playing in bands and stuff like in town, see him around and stuff, but I knew him from the radio. So called him up one day. I was like, hey, Lance, like, I built these guitars. I know you're a big Van Halen fan. Can I bring them by, show you? So he's like, yeah, come on by. Like, that's how simple it was. And
I did not expect this. Wow.
Yeah, so when I got to the radio station, I was actually on my school bus coming back from school, and I rang him up because I heard him on the air, like, because we were listening in the school bus. And yeah, so I went home, grabbed my guitars, went down to the radio station, showed up on the back porch, showing him the guitars, and the program director at the time came out. He was looking at them and stuff. We were just chatting. And the afternoon drive host, Abby, she came on the back porch, we were chatting. And she's like, oh, hey, Lance, don't forget, like, tomorrow I'm off, like, you're doing blah, blah, blah. And he's like, yeah. And I joked and said, I was like, oh, hey, like, what if I, like, can I come hang out tomorrow? Like, check out, like, the radio seems pretty cool. And they were like, yeah, sure, come on by, come hang out. And that's how it started. I literally got my foot in the door. literally on the
That's
back
so
porch of
cool.
K103.
That's so
Yeah.
cool. The right place at the right time.
Honestly, that really is the definition of right place at the right time. Because
Mm-hmm.
had I not built those guitars and had I not called Lance that day, I mean, the who knows where I'd be right now? I mean, maybe I'd still be pumping gas at my parents' gas stations or something, working in a
Wow.
grocery store.
Well, thank you for diving to that story. That was really cool. Got to hear the background story of how you started. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
fun story because
it is.
a lot of people always ask me hey, how do I get into radio and how do honestly, I have no idea because I didn't do it the traditional way. Everyone's like, oh, where did you go to CJAP? And I was like, I went to CJAP for 6 weeks and I dropped out. I hated it. It's
Man.
that kind of thing. So I don't have a traditional kind of, you know, educated journalism degree or background. I really, I'm kind of the definition of learned school of hard knocks, learn from the ground up. I learned by listening, just like music. I grew up listening to certain kinds of records that are some of the biggest selling albums of all time and the best selling albums of all time. So when it comes to music education, you kind of you try and replicate what you're familiar with and it's not necessarily ripping it off. It's more
Mm-hmm.
like an homage because that's what you grew up loving and that's what you're so
Yes.
familiar with. So same thing with radio. Growing up, when I got to the beat and stuff, discovering other radio stations around the world, and that's where the education really happens. You learn from
With
the best,
experience.
not by working with the best, by listening to the best.
Wow.
I think that's the best education you can get. I mean,
Yes.
a lot of the time, people that go to university and go to CJEP, 99% of the time that degree is not worth the paper it's printed on. I mean, at the end of the day, you either have talent or you don't, and that's what's going to make or break you. You can be the most qualified person in the world, but if you don't have that talent, if you don't have that spark, if you don't have that je ne sais quoi kind of thing, which a lot of people don't have, you're not going to make it. And I was just fortunate enough that I grew up in a certain type of household. I was raised by certain parents. I wasn't, like a dick. I just
Yeah.
I'm just for me, it's what you see is what you get, kind of
Yes.
thing,
Yes.
So
Even with listening to you on the radio and watching your podcast, you're always the same Jeremy White. I can always count on that same content coming from you, that same energy. That's really cool. Just to see you here too. It's always the same person.
yeah, well, you know what? That's the thing. People can see through fakeness, right? And
Yes.
it's I just try to be the most genuine person I can. That's just, I don't like fake people, so I wouldn't want to be fake myself.
Exactly.
So it's whether it's obviously the radio show is a lot different from the podcast in a lot of different ways. But at the end of the day, the core of it, it is me. So
That's it. That's it.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of the attraction of it,
Mm-hmm. So what led you to start your podcast?
Well, the podcast is interesting because I've been working on the Beat 92.5 since February 2012. So I was actually I left briefly and then I came back, but at the radio station we have a very set in stone guideline and brand of what the radio station is. We target a certain target audience who's this, and this. They like this, and this. And I'm a 26-year-old guy that grew up loving rock music, but also loving Shania Twain.
Yes.
Or
yes.
Brian Adams. So it's for me to be on the beat, it makes sense in a lot of ways, but also at the same time it doesn't, which is also why it works.
Okay.
So for me, with the podcast, I wanted to do things that I couldn't necessarily do on the radio station. And what the podcast actually turned into wasn't what I had planned. I really just planned on doing and talking about on the air, explore subjects that I can't really necessarily talk about, on the beat, and whether that's be political or even local stuff that happens around my community or different things. But it just so happened to turn into this like interview show where I've been talking to, idols that I artists that I grew up idolizing. So it kind of became something that I didn't plan. And that's the thing. It's like, everything happens organically. You can't force it. And I can honestly say the podcast just turned into what it is organically without like me even trying. Like I don't even know why or how it turned into what it is, but I mean, I worked really hard on it and really hustled to get it to look and sound and do what it's done. But at the same time, it's like I wasn't expecting it at all.
Well, congratulations. I
So
think you almost even hit 1,000 subscribers, and you just started.
yeah,
Yeah, you
I'm
just started.
like just like friends of mine. But now it's like almost at 1,000. So the thing with YouTube is that you can't monetize your account until you hit 1,000 subscribers.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm making zero money off these YouTube videos, but I'm cranking them out
Yes.
because creating the content is going to be your base for the monetization.
Okay.
So everybody asks, oh, how much money can you make from podcasting? Well, it all depends on quality of your content and how frequent you're putting it out, and that's where you're really going to take off with it. But to go back to the point about how or why I decided to do the podcast,
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of friends in the radio biz, like not just in Montreal, like out of the country and stuff. So one of my friends, Joe, worked in New York City radio for 16 years, and we talk about this thing. And another buddy of mine, Mitch LaFawn, who has his own rock podcast called Rock Talk with Mitch LaFawn. It's one of the biggest rock podcasts like in the world.
Yes.
Like he's
huge.
Freaking Nigeria,
Mm-hmm.
all over. We talk about the things that I love, and how can you talk about that on the beat? And I'm like, well, actually, I don't think I can talk about that on the beat because this, and this. Like, well, you're too talented for it to just be sitting by the wayside and not being taken advantage of. You have all these skills that the radio station's not really utilizing. Why don't you just do it on your own? Start a YouTube channel, start a podcast. And at the time, I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm contractually, like, if I'm allowed to do this or that, blah, blah, blah. So when it came time around to renew my next contract at the radio station, my agent we were really smart about, thinking about these things going forward because the radio is changing in so many ways.
It is.
It's very digital now. So we kind of had that foresight of like, the podcast that I'm going to want to do, the radio station's definitely not going to want to do. So I had to originally pitch the podcast to the company, which is Kojiko, and they sat on it. They didn't really do anything with it, and the proposal time limit passed and never got an answer. And I'm like, okay, great. So I'm free to do what I want.
Exactly.
And that's exactly what I did.
Yeah.
So that happened in December. Pandemic hit. And that was the other thing. I was so discouraged. Like, oh God, pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's like broadcasting from home.
Yeah.
Everybody and their freaking uncle's gonna have a podcast now. Like, it's just gonna get lost in the mix. There's musicians that are like, sitting at home and they have nothing else to do because there's no shows, there's no tours. Oh, now they're doing podcasts and live streams from home. Calling up all their famous friends and musicians. And I'm just like, oh God, like, oh, this is like the worst time ever to start it because here's another guy starting a podcast.
I feel you.
So when I started the podcast, like, I really thought about it with like my guys. They were kind of like my consultants in a way. But it's funny because like my friends are some of like the best consultants you could ever have in the world. So to have that kind of team around me to figure things out, it was even better than dealing with the radio station.
Ooh.
Because you've got all these guys that have worked in the media and at these like in New York City, and he works in Toronto, and and somebody who has marketing experience and doing all this and stuff. So we just finally said like, all right, let's just do it. Find a first guest, create that as like the demo.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be the demo. And my first guest was legendary guitarist Billy Idol, Steve Stevens. I met him at a concert backstage the summer
cool.
before.
Yeah.
In touch on Instagram. And I messaged him. I was like directly. Like, I didn't go to a publicist or nothing. He's not one of those guys. And I was like, dude, I'm starting a podcast. I need a first guest. Could you do me a solid and like be my first guest? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. Just let me know when. So we had the first guest, and from there it was developing the branding. So developing a brand from the ground up is very hard. But I've been exposed to the best branding people in the industry since I was 17 working at the Beat. I know how things are supposed to sound. I know how things are supposed to look. I know, you know what I mean? So creating a brand guideline and like coming up with a look and visuals and sounds. Um, it was a lot of work. Um, just the album cover alone, when you go on Spotify and iHeartRadio and Apple and you
Mm-hmm.
listen to the podcast, the album cover is on there. I had Claudio Bergman, he's an album cover artist from Chile. He lives in California, and he did the metal band Judas Priest's last album cover. Judas Priest, like legendary '80s band, they had the song "Breaking the Law." You got another thing coming, like
Yeah.
one of the biggest metal
Super
bands of all
nice.
time.
Yeah.
So had him do the album art, and he designed. He took what I wanted, and it was kind of an homage to one of my favorite albums, and we did that kind of thing. The picture on it, I took it in my basement on my camera. I sent it to him in visuals, and then collaborating on that. And then one of my best friends, Paul Hayes, he's from England. He's British, so if you listen to the podcast, you hear the voice on there, the Jeremy White podcast. Like that's
Yes.
Paul. One of my favorite radio stations in the world is in London. It's called Capital FM.
Okay.
And the woman voice on there, her name's Natalie, and I love her voice. And I just have another buddy of mine knew her, so I was able to get her to read like the sponsor tag on it and like do some other voices. So I got like the 2 British voices on it, and it just adds another level of coolness to it, I think. And so doing all that and figuring out what the podcast is going to be, but like I said at the beginning, the podcast turned into something I was just completely not expecting. Like, it really wasn't supposed to be this interview show. And it just so happened to turn into that. So we're kind of working on rebranding it a little for the new year, coming up with different things. I'm working on maybe getting a co-host to do some stuff and whatever. But, it's been really fun to kind of hustle and get these interviews and, pull the contacts. And, and it's very hard because, you're introduced, I don't have the radio station backing me. So I can't say, hey, I'm number 1 radio personality in Montreal, get an interview kind of thing. It really is more like I'm on the radio, but I'm starting this podcast and, this and that. And so trying to get interviews and stuff. And so the new year, it's going to be a little different.
So now this is definitely you who are bringing in these people. It's not your title anymore. It's like, it's you. So these people are coming to see you for you. So that's a good thing too.
Yeah, it really is a testament of,
yes,
I guess sort of my personality, or, people have come to know me through the years, just on social media and like through the radio and stuff. Honestly, the majority, I would say, the Beat audience isn't my audience for the podcast. I have a completely separate audience. So 95% of the people that are listening to the podcast or watching videos on YouTube are discovering me organically, or are already friends with me on Facebook, or have discovered me through Twitter or different things. And I honestly could say, like, and it's so different from the radio station because the radio station is so there, now it's live. Whereas with the podcast and YouTube stuff, it's available on demand whenever you want it, wherever you want it. So A, it's not even competition for the radio station, and B, it's the complete opposite on another spectrum of what the station is, that I just don't even think that it's the same people. So I'm sure there's a little bit of crossover in between. But yeah, honestly, I'd say majority of the people listening to the podcast are not listeners of the Beat.
Really?
And then I could be wrong. It could all just be Beat listeners, But you can never really tell, right? So
that's true.
Yeah. You're always guessing.
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what you have in stores too. And do you have any other projects that are coming out that you can mention on our little show?
Yeah, in the new year, we're working on a bunch of different things. Today on the podcast, well, I actually didn't upload the podcast yet because I've just been busy, but maybe I'll put it up tonight. But today I spoke to Narada Michael Walden, who's a legendary producer. He's written songs and produced for Aretha Franklin, Ray Charles, Whitney Houston, like the soundtrack to The Bodyguard. Like, he did a bunch of songs in there. Her big song, How Will I Know?
Yes.
we sort of did like a deep dive into what it was like being in the studio and how that song went from just having a chorus to him going sit on the piano and there's a boy I know, like figuring out how to
Mm-hmm.
write the verses and stuff. And we did a deep dive in that. And I'm a musician, right? And I'm a fan of music, so I love talking to artists and like legendary producers about the music I grew up loving and about how those songs, those legendary, standing the test of time tunes, came about. So it was really cool to talk to him, and he's also now the drummer for Journey, like the band Journey.
Yes.
So he's their drummer now, which is epic. And
That's
the
crazy.
bass player is Randy Jackson. Remember Randy Jackson from American Idol?
From American Idol, yes.
Yeah. So he played bass on How Will I Know by Whitney Houston. So that's
Oh.
him playing the bass on that.
Oh,
And
wow.
so now they're actually both playing in Journey, the band, which is really cool. Like Don't Stop Believing.
Yes.
Like that's
Yeah.
we were talking
Huge.
about
I'm a huge
and,
fan of Journey too.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Journey's great.
Mm-hmm.
So, he was a guest on the podcast today, and that's sort of like the last one I got lined up for the year. Next year, I don't know what's going to happen yet. Might take a break in January, might not, pandemic, not much touring going on, people working on music. But like I said, I also kind of want to explore other avenues of content at the same time. So, that plus I'm working on my album and like
Yes.
I'm on the radio and I'm doing it's very busy.
You even have an EP coming up on I think it's June 12th, 2021.
June 12th.
Oh, that's why you chose that date.
Yeah. So usually, new music usually comes out on Fridays.
Yes.
But June 11th is the Friday and June 12th is the Saturday. So I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm not putting it June 11th. I'm putting it June 12th, my birthday. So, it's probably going to be like a 5-song EP, working out the songs,
So cool.
the songs right now. And, it's very difficult because recording music is not an easy thing. Like, it's very easy to record crap, but it's also very hard to record real
music.
Songs.
Yes.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it all stems to a song. If you can grab an acoustic guitar and sing that melody and play those chords and have somebody instantly recognize what you're playing, that's the difficult task.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody can record a song. Anybody can record music. In 2020, 2021, it's so easy to have a home studio. If you got your turntables, you remix something or whatever, anybody can do it. But that's not true. Not anybody can do it. Anybody can make crap.
That is true.
That's the key.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and I really don't want it to be crap. I'm really working and crafting these songs, and I'm playing everything on the EP. I'm producing, I'm engineering, I'm doing everything. I'm playing every guitar lick, singing every backing vocal, like playing every drum fill, like every cymbal hit, like everything, every salt and pepper shaker. Like it's all me. I dropped my shaker the other night and it broke, and all the stores are closed. So now I'm using salt and pepper.
I know, hard times right now. Hard times.
Yeah, so if you listen to the EP when it comes out, you hear shaker part in there. Just
that's the song.
Salt.
I'm gonna remember that. I'm gonna be like, I was speaking to him and he told me what that was for. Oh man,
it's salt and pepper.
That's so funny.
So there's a lot going on and it's busy. And the radio industry's tough. It's like man, like hundreds of people. Thousands of people laid off this year, and just like they're probably not going to be coming back, and it's like it's a brutal, rough industry, man. Like everything else, so many people are out of work, and I'm just fortunate to be still chugging along with the radio station and providing entertainment and content for people to kind of escape from the pandemic for a little bit and get a sense of normalcy. There really is something about radio where you put it on and you hear a certain voice in a certain song that transports you to a certain time, and that's really what we work in. We don't work in what I do is showbiz. I work in escapism. I don't. It's not about traffic and weather together for me. It's really creating a sonic landscape for you to say, "Oh my God, I remember where I was." When they heard the song, or to hear when. Somebody literally said this to me, 3 weeks ago. I got a message on Instagram, and they were like, Jeremy, I'm having a really tough time right now, but you just played a song for me, and hearing your voice introduce the song, it reminded me of 2012 when I was on my way to the airport about to go to Punta Cana on vacation with my grandmother who passed away 6 months after. And I was like, that's escapism.
It is. It is.
That is showbiz. That's having an impact, a genuine impact on somebody's life. And those are my favorite parts of it. That's what I do it for. I don't do it for the pictures with celebs or the notoriety or fame. It's like, at the end of the day, I'm on the freaking radio. Like, I'm not famous or anything.
But you're still doing it.
If I can give somebody that experience, that's what I do it for. I do it for the escapism and the showbiz of it.
And just for example, like my father right now, he's going through a tough time staying in that isolation, and he turns on your show, Jeremy White, and you don't even know what you do for our family. You brighten the days up. You make sure that we're dancing. Your energy is always there. I'm like, I don't know how this guy stays so happy, but I'm so grateful for your energy that pumps through that FM channel and your podcast. We're so lucky to receive the continuous content from you. We're very lucky to watch your videos and enjoy them, especially during this time. But before I go, you even had Gene Simmons recently on your show.
Yeah.
Yeah, how cool is that?
Gene was awesome, man. That just kind of happened by sheer fluke. I was in Ottawa about a year and a half ago with my buddy Mitch LaFawn. We were going to see Kiss. And we were backstage, and we were talking to their manager, Doc McGee. And Doc McGee's a legendary manager. He managed everybody from Motley Crue, Bon Jovi, Guns N' Roses briefly. So, he's the man kind of like responsible for like the revival of Kiss. So, we were hanging out backstage talking, and we're talking about me being from a native reservation and all this stuff. And he actually was saying that he adopted two indigenous children where he lives and stuff. And we were talking about that, and we just developed this, really cool relationship. And last time we saw each other was in February. We drove down to Manchester, New Hampshire. We'll see Kiss down there with David Lee Roth. And, Doc gave us all access passes or the shoot video, photos, like everything, the whole 9 yards. And we did an interview with him backstage. And we just kept in touch. And, I've been wanting to try and get somebody like Gene or Paul Stanley on the show, just to interview one of those guys. I was a freaking teenager, right? I grew up loving these guys, idolizing them. So, we were kind of waiting for like the perfect time for like to have, they weren't promoting anything, nobody's on the road. And they announced this New Year's Eve show. So I emailed Doc and I was like, hey Doc, like, would it be possible to talk to Gene, have him on my podcast? I'm starting this thing, it'd be really cool to have somebody like that, help it out. And he's like, Jeremy, you've helped us out, like last time, at the time of, you and Mitch, like, I'd love to have Gene on. I'll get back to you.
Awesome.
And the next day, their publicist emailed me saying, hey, Jeremy, I was told to set up an interview with Gene for you. Are you available this? And I was like, done. Let's do it. We'll do it whenever he's available.
Exactly. Yeah, right? It's Gene Simmons.
And, it's Gene Simmons from Kiss. I'm not going to say, oh, sorry, I can't do it today at 2 o'clock. I'm canceling everything at 2 o'clock. Come on. So it was that kind of thing, and he was great. He was it was almost like talking to a father figure. But that's the thing when you talk to these artists, it's like they can spot a fake or a phony like from a mile away because they get interviewed by so many people. Kiss has been around since 1973. It's like how many interviews Gene Simmons has done. You know how many he did that day alone?
I'm sure thousands.
He was up at 5 a.m. on TV shows, like on KTLA, and he was on Fox Business or something like that. And then he came on my Rinky Dink podcast. But it was like he noted, he recognized right away that I was like a fan, and he gave me a lot more time than he was supposed to. We chatted for like 30 minutes. I was supposed to have 15 with him.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's
so,
incredible.
We just kept talking and gave great advice and talked about all kinds of stuff. And there's a portion of the podcast that I didn't run actually. I'm saving that for when they go back on tour. So there's going to be like a quasi part 2 with Gene Simmons in 2021. But yeah, so it's stuff like that. I mean, it's awesome.
That's Jeremy White. Honestly, I'm so happy that you spent this time with us on 514OnlineMix. You're the best and award-winning broadcaster for a reason. I can listen to you for days and hours, months. Keep doing what you're doing. Honestly, I'm so grateful. Thank you once again.
Well, I'm going to try, and thanks a lot for having me on your show. By the way, let me ask you about your show. It's like, what do you plan on doing with this show? It's like, what's the ultimate goal? Like,
My
what
ultimate
made you
goal
start
is to be exactly where you are.
to
Like,
get the show going?
my ultimate goal is to get onto the radio. Enjoying your podcast, enjoying your show, and I can't wait for your EP that's coming out. Thank you once again, Jeremy White, for being here on 514 Online Mix.
514 Online Mix, people. It's the spot.
Thank you.